Hi, my name is Jacob. Take two. Oh yeah. Hi, my name is Hi, my name is Jacob, and welcome to another episode of Uncut on the Abrasive Conversations platform. So, in this episode, I would like to start with a story, and and then I will get into the shits. So, last year, in the second semester, I was teaching South African politics at the University of the Western Cape. So I started in July with my actual lectures, and it was supposed to finish all of the 12 lectures, um, 12 weeks of lectures in October. But the course outline and the course reader that we had to finish by May, the latest was June. So the final course outline and the course reader then gets submitted to the department, and then the department uploaded to Vula. So when students come back from their vacation, then they have the course outline, and in the course outline they would see that there's lectures prepared. So my course at UCT, this introduction to South African politics, decided to touch on various things that affects local South African politics. I focus on issues like class and race. I focus on the upcoming the elections that was passed, but I already started trying to prepare students for the 2024 elections and what it would mean for South Africa. I focus on colonialism, I focus on apartheid, I focus on service delivery, and then I turned my attention to issues that is afar, that's not in South Africa, but do affect us in South Africa. And one of those issues that I wanted to focus on for 1 week was the Palestinian issue. So during the first session, in the first week of my lectures, we go over the course reader and make sure the students is on par with you as the lecturer. So I prepared this course reader and course outline way ahead of time and submitted for the department to approve, and then I went over this course outline and course reader with students, and it was generally accepted. There was no objection from anyone in the class, but I could feel a sense of things were changing in the class the closer and closer we got to the Palestinian lectures. I could feel it. It was my second last lectures, and it was week 11. I scheduled it for it. But before I went into the Palestinian issue and the Palestinian lectures, I looked at other issues that affected South African politics. Things such as the Taiwan issue. So there's other things. I wanted to give students a complex understanding of politics. But I also, during the lead up to that specific Palestinian lecture, I wanted to show students that South Africa were, in its formation, or its democratic formation, there was two opposing forces, and they eventually formed the government in 1994. But before 1994 and even 1990, the unbanning with the ANC, you had the ANC that had alliances and partners, and then you had the white NP, National Party-led South African government that have its Western allies and partners. And these two parties were fighting each other in across Southern Africa. And the second lecture in that Issues from Afar, I walked students through this. It was quite disappointing for me to explain this in detail to students, because I expect South African students to know about this, but they didn't know about this. So then the last lecture was about apartheid in Palestine. Now, all of the 10 previous lectures led up to that specific lecture on Palestine, because I wanted to show them how apartheid looked and how apartheid shaped politics. So by then, I expected them to have an in-depth understanding of apartheid and how apartheid looked and how it affected people's life. So I only did this one lecture on Palestine. And I explained terminologies like what was the Intifada. I explained things like 1948, 1976, the two-state solution, the Oslo Accords. I walked them through it. All of my lectures was prepared, and I even gave this to two students to read. Was the Amnesty 2022 report on apartheid in Israel. So when I started the lecture, I could feel that there was this resentment from a small group of students in the class. And lo and behold, that Friday they had to do a pop quiz, and this pop quiz was on Palestine. And the pop quiz was not even done. And I already got an email and protest from that small group of students. And it became apparent to me that this small group of students was part of a Zionist clique at UCT. And they aimed to come after me. And it didn't sit well with me. And then 7 October happened the week after that. 7 of October happened. And the arrogance of the Zionist clique at UCT, and especially in that specific class that I was teaching, was at the all-time high. And this arrogance that they have is a result of Zionist teachings that is taking place in South Africa. And these Zionist teachings is really embedded in various religious sects. And what these young people are being taught is that Israel's occupation of Palestine, of the OTP means OPT, Occupied Palestinian Territories, it's the birthright of the descendants of Abram. So that's the promised land. So they can go in and they can kill and murder and maim people because it's the will of God. It's the will of God that gives them the right to kill and run a genocidal campaign against people of the occupied Palestinian territories. Now, I'm saying people of the occupied Palestinian territories because before 1948, there was a diversity of people in Palestine. And those people lived together with one another. And it was only after 48 that an apartheid, the Israeli apartheid state was created, that created and classified groups into groups of people, created different entries, different roads for people. And that apartheid project looked very similar to the South African project. But in Israel Zionist case, this was acceptable because this was for God and it's from God. So the only way to get to the promised land or realize the second coming of Christ, or the coming of Christ in a different religion's case, is to fully occupy the so-called promised land. And it doesn't have any regard for the indigenous people, which the Palestinians, who have been living in that specific area for a long time. So now the reason why I told you this long story, because I want to come to the ruling that took place 4 days ago. On the 19th of July, the International Court of Justice made a ruling. So, or not a ruling, it gave its advisory opinion to a request that the UN General Assembly asked them to do back in December 2022. So it took about 2 years for them finally got to this advisory opinion. And what the UN advisory UN generally asked the ICJ to do is they had to determine the legality of Israel's occupation in occupied Palestinian territories. Now the occupied Palestinian territories is the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is divided into two. The city of Jerusalem is divided into two. We have East Jerusalem, that is in the West Bank, that falls under Palestine, and then you have West Jerusalem, that is under Israel, and they control that part. And then you have the Gaza Strip. Now, that's the three areas of occupation. And what the ICJ did. Now, the ICJ is the biggest court in the world, and there is no court higher than the International Court of Justice. And it normally gives guidance to prevent the type of atrocities like genocide, crimes against humanity. It is really there to protect innocent and powerless groups of people against the most powerful states like the United States, China, Russia, and most European nations. So, and this is what the ICJ ruled. Their advisory opinion were the following. The first one is that Israel's presence in the occupied Palestinian territories is unlawful. Now, I have to go back to my lectures that I did at UCT. Is exactly this what I said to them, that they are occupying force that is implementing unlawfully apartheid system to build specific settlements, and through that settlements then realize this goal of the promised land. Because the second thing that they ruled is you are unlawfully in Palestine. So you now, the second thing you have to do is you have to end your unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. So it means that they have to leave. They are not supposed to be there. They are unlawfully there and they have to leave. That's what the second ruling said. The third one said is that they have to cease immediately all settlements and evacuate all settlers in the occupied Palestinian territories. So those of you that doesn't know and who follows my channel and have subscribed to, thank you very much. Go and Google settlements in Palestine, and then you would see what is happening and what the ICJ is referring to, this particular one. The fourth one is very important, and that one is to make reparations. Reparations mean that you have to pay people for the pain and the suffering that they have caused. But not just the pain and suffering, you also have to rebuild. You have now obligation to rebuild, because that is part of the reparations. They also have put or reminded states of their obligation. And that obligation is not to recognize Israel's presence as legal in the occupied Palestinian territories. So this means if you are a citizen of the US and the UK and you pay taxes, and the UK and the US continuously give aid to Israel to continue the atrocities that they are busy in the occupied Palestinian territory, then you are liable. You are liable in supporting the erasure of a group of people. You are part of the problem. You are part of that genocidal, colonial genocidal force in this particular world. The only way for you to change it is to change your leaders and your government and your government's policies, and say is that we want a more peaceful society where all societies are equal and that one state doesn't oppress another state. The ICJ also put the obligation on international organizations. International organizations is organizations like the UN, the AU, the EU, and it said that you have an obligation, and that obligation is not to recognize Israel's presence as legal. So I mean, even international organizations cannot support Israel and recognize its presence in occupied Palestinian territories as legal. So they have to start taking measures to prevent any type of support. NATO is one of those particular organizations, an international organization. Even them are obliged not to recognize Israel's presence in occupied Palestinian territories as legal. And finally, it tasked the United Nations Security Council to do something to rapidly end Israel's unlawful occupation in the occupied Palestinian territories. Now, those students, those Zionist students at UCT who came at me during that particular point and tried to cancel me at UCT, thinking that I'm working for UCT. I do not work for UCT, I work for UWC. And at UWC, unfortunately, we have a sense of freedom of speech. We have a level of academic freedom. Academics are respected for what they are teaching. There is not Zionists or any other group that prescribe as to how you must teach and what you must teach. Unfortunately, we have that at UWC, but there is a group of students at UCT who are forcing lecturers or through Zionism so that it must be teach what some right-wing Zionists have taught them. And they've become the new group of leaders that is supposed to do the Zionist work. I'm from UWC. I work for UWC, and we have academic freedom is something that is respected. It's a constitutional right. So, this ruling showed that you were wrong. That you were wrong and that you maybe one day will get redemption when you leave Zionism and come back to humanity. Where humanity means is that we need to carve out a different set of principles where we as humans can live in harmony together with nature, but not to aspire the demise of another group. That's the type of humanity that I am is inspiring towards and really working towards. So it left me with a question, especially this whole ICJ ruling and their advisory opinion. Will it change? I would say, and I would like to start off with hope. There is hope that this will finally bring about a two-state solution, end the unlawful presence of Israel in Palestine, and that there will be finally peace in the Middle East. That is the hope that I have, and there's the hope in many other groups. But with this particular hope comes a deep level of pessimism, because we have seen the rulings that ICJ have made since 26 January to prevent genocide in Gaza, and Israel, the United States, and the UK haven't gave any attention to that. They actually increase their support to Israel to continue the genocide, even though the rulings took place. So this specific advisory opinion will only have strength when the US and the United Kingdom come on board. But they will not come on board because Israel is the last colonial output for them. That's the only way they can control the Middle East, or their specific interest in the Middle East, and especially the natural resources like oil in the Middle East. It's through Israel that they have a foot in the door. So I have another solution, and I've been sitting on a solution. The only way for the Israel state, or the perception to change in Israel, is that they must join the Arab League again. Join the Arab League and become part of a wider Middle Eastern international organization that is trying to find peace in the Middle East. Admit that governments before you were wrong and start the reparation process in the occupied Palestinian territories. It's only through that there will be lasting peace in the Middle East. So, I hope that for followers on my specific channel, that this gave you some clarity. So there was a period that I was quiet about the specific issue. I was quiet because there is something like algorithms, but sometimes you let things play out, and once things play out, you can come again and you can give behind the scenes look. So I hope this particular episode gave you the behind the scenes look of the past 9 months of my life, and some of the attacks that I've endured because I am pro-Palestine. Yes, people, I have a bumblebee, a black bumblebee. I must Google this black bumblebee. It's beautiful, and every time I record, it wants to be part of the thingy. So shout out to you, bumblebee. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I'll bring another topic soon, and maybe I will speak about one day about Zionism in South Africa, in the current Zionist that is in the South African government, and how designers who are in the GNU will protect Israel's influence and want to undermine our democratic and constitutional progress and our standing in the world amongst the free nations. Thank you for watching. My name is Jacob Cloete, and we'll see each other again.